I want to ask you a question, but I don't want you to answer it right away. Now, when you hear the question, you might not know the answer, or you might have something right there on the tip of your tongue, but resist the urge. Don't succumb to the temptation to answer right away, even if you've got that answer pretty quickly, that answer that floats easily on the surface, because what floats easily on the surface isn't always the same as what is buried deep down near the root. The question is, why are you here or there? Why are you where you are? But don't answer. Don't think about it. Just sit with it. And that's not quite the same thing as thinking about it, though it is a subtle difference that often eludes us. Sit with it. And by that I mean place it gently in your mind, as you might gently place a fragile flower on a hard surface. And then back off, giving it some air. Back off, as opposed to approaching it with harsh lighting, a scalpel and some pins, intent on dissecting and analyzing the question to death. Give it some air. And by doing so, quite naturally and without any force, you've already begun to allow the question and the answers to drop seemingly out of nowhere into your conscious mind. It's like the Zen master Saint An says, the more you think about these matters, the farther you are from the truth. Now this process, for this question I've asked, this process may sound familiar to you. Maybe you've used it before, or maybe you've never heard it quite described in this way. But one way to define this process would be to call it introspection. But you could call it something else too. Training. Training for something more profound than introspection. This is one of the many processes that can help to prepare you, to prepare me, really any and all of us, to help prepare us for moments of profound insight. Or as some might call it, preparing us for moments of encountering God. And again, as the Zen master said, at the moment of profound insight, you transcend both appearance and emptiness, both assertion and denial. Through the practice of introspection, the holding of questions, without racing for answers or even consciously thinking, we put ourselves in the way of profound insight, just as surely as jaywalking puts us in the way of oncoming traffic. It's predictable. And though the image that some of us heard Annie Dillard use a little while ago is a little bit violent, it makes a statement about the pros and cons of that predictability that I could be on board with. For those of you who don't remember or can't recall or weren't there, it goes like this. She says, the higher Christian churches, where if anywhere, she says, I belong, come at God with an unwarranted air of professionalism, with authority and pomp, as though they knew what they were doing, as though people in themselves were an appropriate set of creatures to have dealings with God. I often think, she says, I often think of the set pieces of liturgy as certain words which people have successfully addressed to God without their getting killed. In the high churches, they saunter through the liturgy like mohawks along a strand of scaffolding who have long since forgotten their danger. If God were to blast such a service to bits, the congregation would be, I believe, genuinely shocked. But in the low churches, you can expect it any minute. This is the beginning of wisdom, she says. And so it is to us to leave complacency behind, no matter how it dresses up or down. It is to us to walk like mohawks along a strand of scaffolding with no safety wire, knowing the danger, but doing it because there is no other way we could be. Because we are in training for that moment of profound insight. We are watching and waiting and alert so we can experience God. Because God is already waiting. God is already here, there, now. We only have to be aware.